All right, welcome to Polynomials. Today we're going to talk about definitions of polynomials. We're going to talk about adding and subtracting polynomials, multiplying polynomials, and dividing polynomials with long division. So we're going to talk about all things polynomial today. Polynomials. Poly means many, nomial means terms. So in math, it's the mathematical expression consisting of multiple variables or multiple things going on within the equation. So this one, polynomial, means more than one. So we have 5x squared is one term or one variable, 3x is another one, and 1 is a third one. So that's a polynomial. Another one is x minus 2. That's a polynomial. That's also technically a binomial because there's two, bi meaning two. But that's what we're talking about. That's what we're working with. Polynomials, adding and subtracting. When adding or subtracting polynomials. When adding or subtracting polynomials, we simply combine like terms by keeping the variable, the letter, the same, and adding or subtracting the coefficients, the number. So I'm sure you've all done this a billion times, but we're going to talk about it real quick anyways because it's important to know. For example, 3a plus 4a equals 7a. 3a minus 4a is negative 1a. And so you can see we're just working with the numbers, keeping the letter the same. So here's a practice problem. I don't know why I have practice problem number 3 on here. This should be practice problem number 1. But here we are. So we have 3x to the fourth minus 5x cubed plus 2x squared minus 7x plus 6 plus 5x squared plus 3x minus 1. So pause the video real quick, see if you can do this. What you should have came up with is this: 3x to the fourth minus 5x cubed plus 7x squared minus 4x plus 5. So this is very basic algebra 101 type stuff, but it's super important to know how we got here. So if you're missing anything on here, feel free to ask questions and keep practicing until you understand these. All right, the next practice problem is the exact same numbers, but now we're subtracting them. So let's see if you can do this one. So this one gives us 3x to the fourth minus 5x cubed minus 3x squared minus 10x plus 7. I'm not going to explain these because I think that most people will understand them, but if you need more guidance or explanation, reach out to me, let me know, because I'm happy to explain and teach all the details. Let's move on to multiplying. With multiplying polynomials, first we should work on multiplying monomials, mono meaning one. So the way to multiply monomials is multiplying the coefficients together, which are the numbers, 3 times 4, and multiplying the variables, the letters, together separately, x times x. So this one, you should have 3 times 4, which is 12, and you should have x times x, which is x squared. So it comes out to be 12x squared. Multiplying binomials. When multiplying binomials, which means two terms, we use the FOIL method, and then we add those things together. Do I have a little laser pointer here? Aha, laser pointer. So we use the FOIL method. If you've never heard of the FOIL method before, it is this over here. FOIL stands for firsts, outsides, insides, and lasts. So let's break that down a little bit better. FOIL firsts, we have x times x. That's what the first stand for. The outside numbers, which is x times negative 1. Then the insides are 3 and x. Then the lasts, we're multiplying 3 times negative 1. So let's actually solve this problem together. If you want to try it on your own, go ahead and pause it, because here we go. So the first step of FOIL is doing the f firsts. Whoa, spoiler. Well, this is the final answer that we're going to get to, but let me show you how we got there. So the firsts, we have x times x, which gives us x squared. Then we go to the outsides. Outsides are x times negative 1, which gives us negative x. Then we go to the insides, which is 3 and x. We multiply those together, and they give us 3x. Then you have L, lasts, 3 and negative 1, which gives us negative 3. And so now we just add all those things up. So we have x squared plus negative x plus 3x plus negative 3. Which simplifies to x squared plus 2x minus 3. All right, we finally made it to the beast. Multiplying polynomials can look intimidating, but you got this. So when multiplying the polynomials, we need to make sure we multiply each term in the first polynomial with each term in the second polynomial. FOIL doesn't apply anymore, and there's no more simple math tricks. So for this one, you just take each one of the first, multiply by each one of the second. FOIL's only good when you have two terms. So here's an example of a polynomial times a binomial, where you just multiply each number in the first times each number in the second. So talking through this, we would take x squared times x plus x squared times negative 4 plus negative 2x times x plus negative 2x times negative 4 plus 3 times x plus 3 times negative 4. Oh, and here's arrows if that helps you for visually understanding what I just said. So you have those first ones, and then you multiply by the second. And then you take the negative 2x and do it to the first, and then the second. And then you take the 3 times it by the first and the second. All right, so here's the practice problem for you. Give this one a shot. I'm going to go through this one a little bit quicker, so make sure that you actually work through this one on your own and see what you get. All right, here's what I got. By the way, one really good way to check your work is to note the number of terms in your expression before you simplify. So what I'm talking about is right here, this part right here, where I took this thing times this, this times this, this times this, like each thing. You should have however many terms there are here, which is 3, times the number of terms here, which is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. So you should have 6 numbers here that we are adding together. If you don't have 6, you missed something. And so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got all 6. Of course, you still need to make sure that you did all the math right throughout this whole step and with simplifying, but at least you can feel confident that you have the right number of variables here. All right, how about dividing polynomials? For dividing polynomials, we use long division. So let's learn how to do long division. So the best way that I found to learn long division is with an example, and you kind of just follow along. So first of all, this is the format of long division. The way that you would say this is 2x cubed plus 13x squared plus 11x minus 16 divided by x plus 5. Long division is really scary and intimidating for most people, but it's actually just like 2 steps that you just do over and over and over again until you get to the final answer. So let's look at what those steps are. The first thing we do is look at the first term in each of the polynomials and figure out what times x gives us 2x cubed. And that's all we care about right now. Only the first term in each part. Hopefully you can see that 2x squared times x would give us 2x cubed. So we write that at the top, 2x squared. Then the next step is to multiply 2x squared times the rest of the polynomial on the outside. So we do 2x squared times x, and then we do 2x squared times 5. And then we write that below, like this. And so that 2x squared times x is 2x to the third, and 2x squared times 5 gives us 10x squared. So we multiplied, I'm going to repeat probably this part. So 2x squared times x is 2x to the third, and 2x squared times 5 is 10x squared. So we just subtract this whole thing from here. And really there should be parentheses around this technically, because what we're going to do is subtract 2x cubed, subtracting 2x cubed. 13x squared, we're actually going to subtract 10x squared. And that gives us 0, so I just don't write anything there, plus 3x squared plus 11x minus 16. So again, there should really be parentheses right here and right here to signify that we're actually subtracting this whole thing from here. And that's the whole process. So now we just repeat it again. We look at this first thing here, x. X times what gives us 3x squared? That's 3x. So we write it at the top, plus 3x, and we take 3x times 5, and then we write that at the bottom. And now we're subtracting 3x squared plus 15x. Again, this is all in parentheses, and that gives us negative 4x minus 16. And we still have a number at the bottom, so we repeat the process again. X times what gives us negative 4x? Negative 4. So we add negative 4 to the top, and we multiply that by each of these. So negative 4 times x is negative 4x, and negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. And so now I put in the parentheses to kind of show what I was meaning to say earlier here. We are now subtracting negative 4x and subtracting negative 20. And so remember, negative times a negative is a positive. So really we're adding 4x and adding 20, if that's the way that you want to think of it. But this is just how I write it out. So negative minus negative 4x is actually just adding 4x, which gives us 0. and then negative 16 minus negative 20, which is actually plus 20, will give us 4. So now we have this number at the bottom that does not divide by x. We can't multiply x by anything to give us 4x in basic math situations here. So now we cannot divide this 4 by x to make this any whole number. So this 4 would be called the remainder. That's what's left over after dividing it all the way down, and I can no longer divide it by x with a whole number. And there are 2 ways to express this as a final answer that they could put on the DAT. The first option is 2x squared plus 3x minus 4 with a remainder of 4. So the DAT could ask you, what's the remainder when you do this long division? When you divide this polynomial by this, what is the remainder? What it's asking for is 4. Or they could ask you what the whole answer is, and it would be this 2x squared plus 3x minus 4 with a remainder of 4. That's probably the way the DAT will ask it. But the other option is to say 2x squared plus 3x minus 4 plus 4 divided by x plus 5. So let me show you what I'm trying to say. So here's your possible correct answers. 2x squared plus 3x minus 4 with a remainder of 4, or 2x squared plus 3x minus 4, same thing that we had at the beginning, plus the remainder 4 over what we divided by, x plus 5. So the test could ask you to simply divide the polynomials together, or they could ask what's the remainders for. And remember, this is a multiple choice test, so you'll see the answer choices and know what they're asking for, what format that they want. Your job is to do the long division and put it in the format that they want. Hopefully that makes sense. And here's your summary slide. Adding and subtracting polynomials, multiplying monomials, multiplying binomials, using FOIL, and multiplying polynomials. And then finally finishing up with what we just did, the long division, dividing polynomials. And I'll see you in the next one.